So I'm Sara Bice. Many of you will know me in my IAIA role, but in my real life, I direct a program called the Next Generation Engagement Program, which is based at the Australian National University and is what we believe to be Australia's largest study into community engagement in the infrastructure sector, potentially ever. That project would not be possible if it were not for this woman standing next to me, who is my colleague but also very dear friend, Kirsty OConnell. Kirsty is our industry director for the program, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the work that we've been doing in relation to thinking about professionalization, particularly as it relates to community engagement, and I'll then talk about some of the corollaries that we see between the community engagement profession and social impact assessment. So over to Kirsty.
Thanks, Sarah. And can I say, I feel so lucky to work with Sarah on a regular basis. You don't get that kind of energy everywhere. And it certainly helps me in the late afternoon energy slump to push on through. So we're looking forward to a high energy session this afternoon for you guys. I have to confess I'm something of an imposter. I am an engagement professional, so I don't claim to have reached the lofty heights of formal impact assessment. I have a huge respect for what you guys do for a living. But I've got to tell you, I've spent a lot of this conference nodding my head in furious agreement as I've listened to the kind of challenges that you're experiencing in impact assessment. I personally have led communication and engagement for around $17 billion worth of infrastructure projects now. And I've got to tell you, there are so many common problems, and we certainly suffer. I think, Sheridan, you mentioned, that idea that anyone can do it. If you can write and speak, then, gee, you probably need a career in engagement or social impact assessment because you can do that. So we suffer from that. We suffer from potentially not having that level of awareness about what a good engagement practitioner looks like and the value that they add. We really need to do a better job, and it's a big part of what Sarah and I are trying to achieve with Next Gen in terms of explaining what the value is of the profession. What do we bring to the infrastructure sector, to the major project development sector? And I'm hearing a lot of that from the impact assessors in the room as well. We definitely hear you and we understand those issues. Like social impact assessment, there's a real lack of formal degrees. In fact, I think we're probably even worse off. There isn't a single degree that I'm aware of at an undergrad level for engagement, and there's only one that I'm aware of, which now has another name, but arose by any other name. Joanne, still smelling as sweet. And that's at master's level. So, we really suffer from that lack of professional accreditation, if you like, as well. So that's certainly a common feeling. And finally, we do have that lack of clarity on numbers. So you were mentioning, Sheridan, approximately 50 with the title of social impact. One of the cute things that government does every now and again, because they do love to chop their comms teams up every time there's a little bit of pressure on, is give us other names. So it does become very hard to understand how many people are working in this profession. Best finger lick I can give you is thousands. But we did go to Temple Executive Search, who were a partner in our pilot phase, and they just couldn't tell us. And they're one of the leading recruiters in the corporate affairs space. That gives you some idea of the issues that we're grappling with on a regular basis. So earlier, in fact it was late last year, we asked some leaders in the profession to really start to debate this idea of how do you take the profession to the next level? How do you get the level of credibility that we're looking for? And what role might formal certification or a qualification play in that? And it was really interesting. We came up with the idea of asking them to, in fact, no, I'm not going to claim that. Sarah came up with the idea of asking them to debate both sides of the argument. And that really got everybody thinking, because it was actually quite easy to debate both sides, even though intuitively we all went, yes, a degree would be a great idea. Then we started to unpick it. So we have a very female profession. We have a profession that's not paid quite as well as our other discipline leads in the infrastructure environment. We have an ageing profession. Most people come into it similar to social impact assessment. We come into it from other fields. I myself started in journalism, got sick of poverty and decided that community engagement might be a better way to spend my time. But, so we tend to be that little bit older, and when you come to a major conference, you certainly see lots of people who might not have a 40 to 50 year time period left in the industry. There's a lot of people that might be sitting at that 10 to 20 year time frame. So some of the issues that came up when we talked about a certification was, how do we acknowledge the skill set of those people that might come to it with 30, 40 years experience, that might have absolutely zero interest in undertaking a degree if that's going to be the new path to legitimacy? How do we keep them in, keep them interested? And if we do ask people to undertake the degree, will it actually achieve what we want to achieve? Will it give us credibility as an industry? Will it change the way our peers see us? Will it potentially create those career pathways that we're looking for? Or might there be other ways to achieve that? It's very unusual. Even though nearly every CEO or major project director in the infrastructure space, every time you see an advertisement, one of the key skill sets they're looking for is stakeholder engagement skills. It's almost unheard of to see someone from this profession graduate to that level of role. In fact, I can think of less than 10 off the top of my head, and I look regularly to try and find positive examples. So that's an interesting thing. In talking about whether you would undertake a degree, one of the questions that came up was, will clients pay for it? If you're going to ask people to invest in a degree, and I can see similar issues for the SIA sector, is this something that you can use to, particularly in the consultancy space, to bump your hourly rate? Because let's face it, if I'm selling comms people at X an hour, probably 180 to 200 an hour for a senior. For a very experienced person, you might be going up to 250 an hour. I compare that to an estimator who can comfortably go get $300 an hour, with much less experience. And, so I need to be making those decisions, those very commercial decisions about whether I can use that to influence the hourly rate. Other questions that were pondered and discussed in this debate: where should it sit? Should it be in comms, or does that reinforce the status quo? Should it be offered at undergrad level, or like what our other commentators were saying, is it something that's more fitted to a master's level student? And finally, I'm so sorry, I've lost it. Where we sit? Oh, yes. So would we lose, really key point, would we lose those people that come from other skill sets? So one of the wonderful things about the engagement profession is that diversity of experience. And again, head nodding as Sheridan was talking about the kind of experiences people come in with and the kind of qualifications they have. Would we lose that if we have a degree qualification, if that's the basis for our legitimacy? So those were some of the things that were raised. We have some really interesting insights to share from our second State of Infrastructure and Engagement survey, and I'll leave Sarah to explain why we're talking about engagement when the topic is SIA, because I know she has a great reason for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsty. So Kirsty gives you the real industry perspective there and a bit of background on the work that we've been doing, particularly, excuse me, because I'm shorter than Kirsty, of the work that we've been doing around community engagement. We'll see if this will work. Maybe it won't. Okay. Yes. So I'm a researcher. I always try and unpick assumptions before I start telling you what I think you might want to think about. So I sat down the other night and I thought, well, what are some of the key characteristics of community engagement roles and social impact assessment roles? And is there enough similarity here that we can share some findings with you and they would actually be relevant? Folks, I'm going to say yes. I put a lot of green up there. I decided I would use a stoplight model. Social science foundations, tick on both sides. The work that's required is often required by regulation. So core work required by regulation. Hello, welcome. Absolutely. Formalized processes on both parts. We have quasi-formalized processes. As we know in SIA, we do have a lot of choices, individual practitioners, as to the types of process that we choose. Similarly with community engagement, we have communities of practice and wonderful membership organizations like these. Specialist training is available. So there's a lot of executive education, a lot of professional development, a lot of what we would call in both fields capacity building. And indeed, IAIA offers this, as do other colleagues in the room. And then there's this question of, is it a recognized profession? And this is a question that for IAIA, relative to SIA, has been raised again and again over the years. Do we need to become a certifying body? Do we need some form of compliance-based certification? And it's a huge question. It also raises a fundamental question about, what does it mean to be a profession? Who in this room feels like a professional? Tell you what, I do. My goodness, I work really hard. I feel like a professional, but as a social impact assessor, am I technically part of a profession? It's a genuine question. It's a genuine and outstanding question. Are we really part of a profession, and what does a profession mean? And do we need some form of certification, like, for example, a chartered practicing accountant? So these are the things that are out there, and one of the things that often goes alongside notions of certification are questions that we've been talking about today around tertiary education and degree structures. And Will, what I'm going to get you to do is just wave at me when you want me to stop, okay? Because I'm not very good with timekeeping. Okay, so the question then, what does this look like? So we want to make a foundational argument that the work that we do as social practitioners is very important. So we first started this survey in 2017, and in those findings, we asked infrastructure sector professionals from all stripes of the profession, everyone from financial investors to engineers to project managers to community engagement and social impact specialists, what issues were affecting projects that were delayed or canceled or delivered but not as originally intended. And perhaps unsurprisingly for those of us in the room, the major issue that led, the most impactful issue, was stakeholder pressure, followed closely by changes in policy and regulation. And it was the more technical issues, which you can see down on the right-hand end, things like funding and access to technical expertise. Those were the ones that really we weren't having or seeing a lot of problems with. Those were least impactful. And so I put this to you simply to say the work that we do really, really matters. And so we did this work again this year. And this is the first time that you're going to see some of this data. So I hope you're all as excited as I am. All right. What we're tracking in this survey is a number of things, and today we're going to focus on the professionalization aspects, but we are looking at key factors that influence successful project delivery, and by infrastructure projects, we take a very broad-based definition, so everything from energy, water, to transport. We're also beginning now to look at social infrastructure. We look at major precursors to social risk that impact project outcomes. We're looking at, as I am wont to do, social license to operate. And for our discussion today, we're also tracking professional experience of community engagement practitioners. What were your degree qualifications? Where have you come from? What are you looking for? How do you experience legitimacy in your role? And I think these things are very applicable to the SIA profession. So one thing that's interesting too is that our respondents to the survey this year, we had approximately 156 respondents. Different people answered different questions, but we have a mean average of experience of around 13 years. So these are folks who have been in the sector for a while. And we said, well, what actually do you do and who do you work for? The majority of our respondents are probably, and again, this is where I think this is very relevant, comparable data, the majority of our respondents work for consulting or advisory firms, followed closely by government. And you can see there in the pie chart a few of the other sectors. I'm going to move through this quickly. The main thing for me is that you know that this data exists, and most of you know how to find me. Okay, so track me down and I will help you to get parts of this data that you might be interested in. The other thing that's really great about this particular survey across Australia is that the sector-based experiences of our respondents map really well onto the current projects being delivered within Australia. So the spread of responses, people working on everything from airports to rail, is pretty reflective of what's happening in the country at the moment. This is where we start to get a bit more interesting. So respondents' role types and levels. A lot of people describe themselves either as a team member, so they're probably younger people starting out in their careers. We had about 30% there. But then our second group are senior managers. So we've got a really nice spectrum of different role types and levels of experience who are responding to this particular survey. Then we said, well, what's your primary role in infrastructure delivery? And again, this is where I think our data may be really helpful for thinking about SIA. We have about 73% of our respondents are focused on the social and community side of work. So the data that I'm going to show you is going to give you a lot of insights into work that I think is very well aligned with our own. Then we said, right, okay, we know that 73% of those folks are in community-related roles, social-related roles. What was your highest level of education obtained? And we can see again, so most people, we're having quite a move towards master's degrees. So we've got about 30% of individuals working in these roles who are now going on to get a master's degree. Our question as a profession, because I'm going to call us one because I think we have that capacity. Our question is, where are our master's degrees? And what do they entail? And if they are delivered through a traditional university structure, how do we ensure the interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, or even transdisciplinary approach that is going to give us the skills that we need to work effectively in the field? So there's a real tension between universities as static institutions who do things a certain way and what we may need as practitioners in terms of education and upskilling. In community engagement, unsurprisingly, we see that there is a really, really large focus around communication and marketing degrees. And were we to run this survey for impact assessment professionals, I think we'd see more of a focus around social science. Happily, we are going to run this survey for impact assessment professionals. It's called the State of Impact Assessment Survey, and shortly after the conference, we will be sending around a link, and I expect everyone in this room to apply. I have a very good memory, and I know who was here. I'm a bit over. Okay, I'm going to show you the very most interesting thing as a thought piece to leave on. So one of the things that we asked was, if we could give you a tertiary degree so that you could have this legitimating qualification, would it matter? Do you believe? So we said, how much do you agree or disagree? If I held a tertiary degree specializing in community engagement, and we can substitute SIA there, and you can think about this, my colleagues from other disciplines would respect my work more. And this, folks, is where we can have a great discussion because, as you can see, the results equivocate. Thank you.